Welcome, it's Jennifer McGuire. A while back I shared how I store my clear and cling stamps, and this system has really worked very well for me. However, I get a lot of emails asking how I store my stamps that are too large or too small for this system, and I thought I would show you today what I do for these larger and smaller sets. If you have not yet watched the original video that I did on stamp storage that shares information about these little stamp pockets and the containers I store them in, be sure to click on the corner here or in the YouTube description below where I will have a link. Also, in the YouTube description and over my blog, I'll have links to all the different products that I use for organization that I'll be sharing in this video. Okay, so most clear or cling stamps are about 4 by 6, like the stamp sets that you see here, and they fit perfect in these stamp pockets that I get from a company named L. In the pocket, I also cut a piece of inexpensive white cardstock so that it has a little bit of stability. And then I also put a label in the corner using my label maker with the name of whatever the stamp set is. I also like that there's a flap on top that closes to make sure that none of the little stamps fall out if I've used them a lot. Now you can see this works great for your normal stamp set. However, a lot of companies have been coming out with larger stamp sets, and a lot of people have been asking what I do with those. So here's an example of a stamp set from Clearly Besotted, and it's taller than those stamp pockets. The width is fine, but you can see that it is taller than those stamp pockets. Now, there are a few different things that you can do. To be honest with you, I think the easiest thing to do would be to tuck them into the same pockets, but just have the top stick out a little bit. That way you have all of your stamps in the same type of pockets, and you don't have varying heights. These will stick out a bit, but I still think it works out just fine. However, if you really want a pocket that is tall enough for this stamp set, you could get these 5-inch by 8-inch pockets from Office Depot, which I'll provide a link for. They don't have a flap on the top, but you can see the stamp set fits in it perfectly. Now this pocket is a little narrow compared to the L stamp pockets, but it is taller. Now this is what I used to store my stamp sets in, but I decided that I wanted all of my stamp sets to be in these L stamp pockets. So I only wanted one size pocket. So I'm going to show you how I convert the bigger stamp sets to fit into these pockets. I'm taking an empty stamp pocket. This is the same thing I store them in. I'm going to actually cut the sides and the bottom off. So I'm cutting about 1/4 inch off the sides and the bottom, and this will result in 2 pieces. One of the pieces will have the flap, which I can cut off. But these 2 clear pieces are now slightly smaller than a pocket, so I can store my stamps on this clear piece and slide it into the pocket. So let me show you how I do that. I will set one of these clear pieces aside for the next stamp set. For this I just need one. I'm going to go ahead and start peeling off my stamps and putting them onto the clear piece that we just cut. And I just start arranging them closer together. Many of these stamp sets are kind of spaced apart on these sets, so I'm just going to kind of put them closer together. Now, I will not have my original packaging where they have the stamped images printed. I'll show you how to solve that in a moment. But what I do is I keep the original sheet with the printed images on it. I keep that in a drawer, so if I ever want to give the stamp away or have it back in its original packaging, I have it. I don't ruin it. But this allows me, by switching over, this allows it to fit into the stamp pockets, and they're all in the same size pockets. Now I have many of these taller size stamp sets, and I've never found a case where all the images won't fit onto the clear piece that I cut myself. So I think almost all the time, if not all the time, the images will fit on the piece that you create yourself. Sometimes it's a puzzle and you got to fit them on there, but it always does work. Okay, so now I have all my images on this clear acetate, and that printed piece off there to the left, I'm just going to save that in a drawer in case I want them in the future. And since I'm not using that printed clear piece that came with the stamp set, I need to create my own key for the stamp set. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink up all of the images while they're all on that clear piece. No need to put these on acrylic block. I'm inking it up with a gray ink. You can use any ink you want here. I just like the gray. And I'm going to take out my white insert and stamp all of those images onto that white piece. So now I will know exactly what stamps are in the set. So I take this piece, I put the stamp set behind it, and I slide it right into my pocket. So what's showing on the front are all the images that are included in the stamp set in the back. So now I can store these larger stamp sets in with my regular stamp sets. They're all in the same type of pockets. I really like having that uniform look. And if you have matching dies, you can slide them in there too. And again, I'm going to go ahead and keep this printed clear piece in case I want to put the stamps on it to either give to someone to sell, or in case some company comes out with some great pockets that would work in the future. So this little trick works well with stamp sets that are only slightly bigger than a stamp pocket. However, there are stamp sets that are much larger, and I'll be honest with you, stamp sets like this one from W+9 that are much bigger, I don't put them in a stamp pocket. I don't have that many of them, so I just stick them in the back of my container with all my stamp pockets, and that works fine. However, if you want to, you could cut two clear pieces and transfer half the images onto one and half onto the other and put that into a stamp pocket and store it with the other pockets that you may have, and that works out just great. But I just find that right now I don't have that many of these large sets, so I just stick them in the back of the stamping container where I have all the stamps stored. I know Tim Holtz has some stamp pockets that might work for them, but I think this works out well like this, and you can see they're all about the same width, so they store together quite nicely. So that covers stamp sets that are larger than a stamp pocket. Now let's talk about those that are smaller than your average stamp set. There are many companies that have small stamp sets like Simon Says Stamp and Lawn Fawn, and a lot of people want to know what to do with those. I'll be honest with you, I just stick two of them into a stamp pocket together. I label both of them up in the top, and they just kind of sit on top of each other perfectly in one of these stamp pockets. I love this. This works good. It seems only a few companies have small sets, so I can put two in a pocket, and they're both from the same company. However, sometimes you only want to have one by itself. If that's the case, what I like to do is put a mini glue dot, which is kind of temporary, just one mini glue dot on the back of the stamp set and glue it onto the insert so that it's towards the top of my pocket. That way when I'm flipping through all my pockets, I can easily see it and it doesn't hide down in the bottom. And that way you can put one in a pocket at a time. So some people might think that's a waste of some storage space or one of these pockets. So that's why I put two into one pocket. And this works great for me. But if you are interested in a smaller size pocket for these small stamp sets, I would encourage you to try the smaller pockets that I use for die storage, which I'll link to here and in my description below. So for me, I find it best to convert my large stamp sets to fit into the regular stamp pockets and also store my small stamp sets in these regular stamp pockets. I find that having them all in the same size pocket gives me a uniform look and helps me to stay more organized, which helps me to create faster. And once again, if you missed my original video where I talk about these stamp pockets and the containers I use to store them, you can click on the screen here, or you can look at the description below on YouTube where I have a link to the video. Also in the YouTube description, I have links to multiple sources for where you can get the products I mentioned, or you can head over to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com. As always, I really appreciate you stopping by to watch a video. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up so that lets YouTube know that you want to see some more from me. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.